The morning my garage burned down started like any other, quiet, foggy, and way too early for drama. I was halfway through my first cup of coffee when I heard the sirens. At first, I thought they were heading to the main road like usual, but then the flashing red lights reflected off my kitchen window, and my stomach dropped. I ran outside barefoot, still clutching my mug. The firefighters were already ripping open my garage door with a crowbar. Black smoke poured out in thick, ugly waves. Flames licked the ceiling from the inside, even though the structure was mostly metal. Heat radiated across the driveway, prickling my skin. "What happened?" I shouted over the noise. One of the firefighters yelled back, "We got a call about a small blaze. Lucky we arrived when we did. Another minute and the car would have caught." I stumbled backward, stunned. My car, my tools, the storage boxes, everything I'd spent years collecting, gone or close to it. I kept thinking I must still be dreaming. Things like this didn't happen on Willow Ridge Lane. Not in our pristine, rule-obsessed, homeowners association-patrolled neighborhood. Keran, the HOA board member, jogged up the street the moment the fire trucks arrived. She was in full speed walking gear, visor and everything, as if she'd been waiting for a reason to performatively care in public. "Oh my gosh!" she gasped dramatically, resting a hand on my shoulder without permission. "What a tragedy! You should have stored your paint cans properly. You know the HOA guidelines about flammable materials." "Keran, I don't keep paint in the garage," I said. She blinked twice, too fast. Well, maybe you forgot you did." Her voice trembled. Not guilty trembling, more like caught trembling. A few minutes later, a firefighter pulled me aside. "Sir, the burn patterns aren't lining up with an accidental ignition. We're going to investigate further." Keran stiffened when she overheard. "Oh, that seems unnecessary. Accidents happen." The firefighter ignored her, thank goodness. Neighbors began gathering on the sidewalk, whispering. Some looked concerned, some looked entertained, but everyone seemed confused about why Keran was the one explaining things. To everyone, loudly, repeatedly, and always with a suspicious amount of detail. By noon, the fire was out, the garage was a blackened mess, and the investigator had already found something unusual. He didn't tell me what yet, but when he asked to see my outdoor camera footage, Keran suddenly announced she had a meeting and hurried home. The footage would change everything, especially for her, because what Keran didn't know, not yet, was that she was about to walk into a courtroom where I wouldn't be her annoyed neighbor. I'd be her judge. By the afternoon, the fire investigator had finished taking photos of the debris and carefully bagging a few suspicious items. I hovered nearby, trying not to look like I was hovering. My garage was still warm and the air smelled like chemicals and burnt rubber. But the investigator seemed oddly calm, too calm for someone who'd just told me things looked unusual. "Do you have the camera login ready?" he asked. I handed him my phone. "It's all on there." I had two cameras pointed at the garage, one over the driveway and one angled across the side yard. I installed them years ago after a string of car break-ins in the neighborhood. Back then, the HOA praised me for being proactive. Ironically, the same cameras would now expose one of their own. The investigator tapped through the timeline. I watched his brows knit together. "Here," he said. I leaned closer. The footage showed the previous night, 11:47 p.m. A dark figure walked into frame. Hoodie, gloves, careful steps. The person moved with intention. No wandering, no hesitation. They headed straight to the side of my garage. "Pause," I said. The investigator paused. The person turned slightly, just enough for the visor light from my neighbor's porch to catch their face. Not a stranger. Not a random arsonist. Keran. Her expression was unmistakable. Irritated, muttering something, waving her phone around like it was a guidebook to bad decisions. I noticed she also carried a small container. Plastic. Familiar. One of those cheap gasoline canisters people use for lawnmowers. My chest tightened. I wasn't angry yet, just stunned. The investigator looked at me. "Is that who I think it is?" I nodded. HOA board member, and the self-appointed neighborhood rule enforcer. He exhaled slowly. Well, this is going to get interesting. By the next morning, the footage was in police hands. An officer came to get a statement from me, and while he was polite, he had that weary, "we've dealt with her before" tone. Apparently, she'd filed so many petty complaints that the department practically had a folder dedicated just to her. Still, the evidence was clear enough that the officer promised someone would be paying her a visit. Word spread faster than I expected. By dusk, I couldn't even step outside without a neighbor pretending they just discovered they needed to walk their dog past my driveway. Some were sympathetic, some were nosy, a few looked gleeful, like they were watching a live soap opera. But everything crystallized when I got the official letter. I'd been selected, again, to serve as a temporary substitute municipal judge for the upcoming month. A role I took on only occasionally. And the case schedule attached? Keran's arraignment was on it, staring right at me. The morning of the arraignment, I arrived early. The courthouse was quiet at 7 a.m., the kind of quiet that settles deep in your ribs. I walked the familiar halls, nodding at clerks who had no idea that today's docket held a personal landmine. I wasn't nervous about judging a neighbor's case. I'd handled everything from noise complaints to vandalism before, but seeing Keran walk in after burning down my garage, that was new. Still, I reminded myself of the rules. Neutrality, professionalism, no emotion. A judge's bench isn't a place for revenge, even when every neighbor in a 3-block radius is rooting for it. At 8:29 a.m., exactly 1 minute before proceedings began, the double doors swung open. A flurry of perfume, jangling bracelets, and indignation swept in. Keran. She was dressed as if auditioning for a daytime reality court show. Bright blazer, oversized sunglasses, hair sprayed into submission. Her lawyer trailed behind her, looking like he desperately wished he were somewhere else. They hadn't seen me yet. Keran marched forward, rummaging through her purse loudly enough to echo. "Where is the judge?" she barked at the clerk. "I need to speak to him privately. This entire thing is a misunderstanding, and frankly, I shouldn't even be here. My HOA record is spotless." The clerk glanced at me. "Ma'am," he said, "the judge is already in the courtroom." "Well, then tell him to hurry up. I don't have all day." I stepped through the side door and took my seat at the bench. She froze mid-rant. Her sunglasses slid down her nose. Her jaw opened slightly as if her brain needed a moment to reboot. "You," she whispered. "Good morning," I said calmly. "Please take your seat." Her lawyer nearly tripped, pulling out a chair for her. Keran sputtered. This is inappropriate. You can't preside over this. You're biased. You're the victim." I folded my hands. The court is aware of the conflict. However, this is a preliminary arraignment, not a trial. My role today is simply to inform you of the charges and ensure you understand your rights. A different judge will be assigned for all future hearings. Her lawyer quickly whispered in her ear, probably translating my words into terms she'd accept. Keran slumped back, arms crossed, scowling like a child denied dessert. I read the charges: arson, property damage, endangerment. Each one made her sink lower. When I finished, Keran stood abruptly. "This is absurd! I didn't burn anything! Those cameras probably glitched!" I raised an eyebrow. "You can present your evidence at trial. Until then, Mrs. Kendall, please refrain from commentary." She sat again, cheeks burning. For the first time since the fire, I felt the tension in my chest loosen. Not satisfaction, just clarity. This wasn't vengeance. This was accountability finally catching up. The trial took place 6 weeks later, long enough for the charred remains of my garage to be hauled away, but not long enough for the neighborhood gossip train to slow down. By the time the court date arrived, Keran had cycled through 3 lawyers and filed 4 separate complaints accusing me of everything from judicial intimidation to spiritual harassment. All were dismissed. I didn't attend the trial itself. Ethics rules kept me far from the process. A different judge presided, someone with the patience and calm of a person who'd been dealing with small-town chaos for far too long. Still, my statement and evidence were part of the record. The neighborhood waited like it was the season finale of a show they all secretly binge-watched. 2 days before the verdict, I got an unexpected knock at my door. It was Mr. Willett from across the street, quiet, retired, the sort of man who trimmed his bushes with ruler-level precision. He held an envelope. "Thought you'd want to see this," he said. "Found it on my security camera from the same night as the fire. Didn't realize it might matter until I heard what she said in court." Inside was a printed still frame. Keran, after setting the fire, sprinting away, then returning minutes later, placing a bucket of water just out of sight of my driveway cam, clearly to look like she'd been trying to help. Another lie. I forwarded the footage to the police. They sent it to the prosecutor before the final hearing. Apparently, it made quite an impression. The verdict came out the next afternoon. Guilty on all counts with mandatory restitution, fines, and probation. Her lawyer tried to argue that she'd acted out of concern because she believed I had violated HOA storage rules. The courtroom transcript later revealed how that went. Judge: "So your client believed he stored paint illegally?" Lawyer: "Yes, Your Honor." Judge: "And her solution was arson?" Lawyer: "We withdraw that argument." The sentence wasn't harsh. This was a small town after all, but it was enough. Compensation for the garage, community service, and a permanent removal from the HOA board. The last one stung her the most. The day after sentencing, I stepped outside to find her standing on the sidewalk, staring at the ground. No sunglasses, no visor, just a strained, exhausted face. "I guess you're happy," she muttered. I took a breath. "I'm not happy your choices led here, but I am relieved the truth mattered." She didn't respond. She simply walked away, quiet for the first time since I'd known her. Weeks passed. My new garage was built. Neighbors stopped lingering for updates. The street felt normal again, peaceful, like the fire had burned away more than wood. It had burned away a long-standing fear of speaking up. And the next HOA meeting? Let's just say it was the most relaxed one Willow Ridge had ever held. Enjoying this wild HOA saga? Tap follow so you don't miss more insane neighborhood drama and real-life story breakdowns. If this chapter had you hooked, hit like, and drop a comment telling me what you would have done if your garage went up in flames thanks to a Keran.